What's up, everybody? This is my final GTI video. It's kind of sad, but the GTI is gone. It's sold. This is all I have left of it. Just this piston, only piston. I want to make this video and go over my experience with the GTI, tell you everything I did with it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the mods I did, what I liked about it, and what I didn't like about it. And if you guys have been following along with this series, you know that I had some major problems with the GTI, so I want to share that experience and my final build at the end and get you guys' opinion. Did I pay too much? So I needed something that had good gas mileage. I gotta do that part again. The batteries fell out of the microphone. Recording. So, if you guys haven't been following along with the GTI series, I'm gonna link all the videos in the description below so you can watch them catch up. Watch it, it's a fun little series. If not, I'll give you a quick little rundown of what I did to the car, the mods, and kind of why I bought the car. Let's start with that. Why did I get a GTI? So when I first started looking, I wanted an enthusiast car. I wanted a car that I could mod, a fun little car that I could drive back and forth from work, but also take the track if I wanted to. And this was my idea of, I need a daily, and I want to have something that I can play with and have a little fun with. I did a lot of research on some different cars, and I ended up going with the GTI because it had a lot of community to it. I had a lot of information out there, and it was very mod friendly. This was important to me because I knew I was gonna do this video series. When I went into this, I wasn't a huge car enthusiast. I didn't know much about cars. I do love cars. I love detailing cars. I love the business side of it, but I just didn't know as much as I wanted to about the modding side of it. So this was my whole take on it, and I wanted to share with you guys my story of modding the car and what I'm learning when I was doing it. So that's exactly what I did with the GTI. So I did the research. I was looking for a particular type of car. I wanted a manual. I wanted it in white, and we finally found one. It's a 2016 Volkswagen GTI Mark 7. I paid $20,000 for the car, and at the time that I picked it up, it had about 33,000 miles on it. Drove it around. It wasn't long before I actually took it to GRD Tuned, where I got the stage 1 tune to it, and I did a lot of research, and this was kind of like the biggest value for your buck when you're getting a GTI. The stage 1 tune actually adds anywhere from 50 to 70 horsepower, and it's relatively cheap. It's only $500 or $600 to do the tune to it. So I was like, that's got to be done right away. I know most people did that, so I brought it over to GRD. They started doing the stage 1 tune, and we are gonna upgrade the clutch because this is what I heard. When you do the stage 1 tune, it gives you more power. The stock clutch can actually go out because of the power. It's not gonna hold that. So they recommended doing that upgraded clutch at that time, and we went with a South Bend stage 2 clutch. They put the clutch in, they took the transmission down to actually put the clutch in, and while they were in there, they suggested they could put in a downpipe. And this would actually make it a stage 2 tune. So that's what we did. They talked me into it. It was real hard. They put the APR downpipe in the car. They put the stage 2 clutch in, and then they did the stage 2 APR tune. At the same time, they did this dog bone wish mount type of thing, which actually holds the engine in there a little better. There was a little jerkiness. I could feel a little play in the engine before I actually brought it there, and it was a big difference after we put that dog bone mount in there, so I was super excited about that. So we put the clutch in there. I had 500 miles to actually wear in the clutch, so I couldn't drive it hard. But after that, it had all the cool sounds. It farted and popped. And I love that, and that's the big reason why I got this car. I wanted it to be fast, I wanted it to be loud. I was super excited. After we wore in the clutch, I drove the crap out of it, and it was awesome. It was a huge difference with the downpipe and the tune. It was fun. The whole time, the car was just an amazing experience just to drive it. After GRD tuning, I bought some parts off of moddedeuros.com. I got an intake, an air intake, I got a charge pipe, and I got a turbo inlet and a discharge pipe. So this was all from DFG Tuning. I installed everything. I did a video on how to install it. It didn't take that long. It took a half a day. It was super easy. And afterwards, the car could breathe better, and it had some new sounds to it. It actually released all the the turbo pressure, I guess, I'm not exactly sure, but it and that was just another sound that added to the driving experience. I absolutely loved hearing that every time, just to put the windows down and drive and hear that. It was awesome. The interior of the car was probably one of the best interiors that I've ever seen. Everything was so tight. It had the carbon fiber inlays in it. The seats, the leather seats were beautiful. The car was very well taken care of and maintained. When I sat in the seat, I just felt like it hugged you. It just drove real well. I fit in the car very well. It felt like my car. And at the time, when I got that done, I'm like, this is my forever car. This was fun. I mean, it was absolutely awesome. I ended up doing a lot of different things to the car. The next things that I did, of course, with owning Chicago Auto Pros, I did the window tint, I did the ceramic coating, I did the interior detail, we did the paint correction, we did the whole 9 yards. We made it absolutely beautiful. There was a couple dents that I had in the car. Dennis Does Dents came out and fixed all the dents, and it was absolutely perfect. It ran good. It looked great, it looked fantastic, it was protected. I had PPF on the front end of it. It was good to go. After that, we took it to the track. I went with Dennis Who Does Dents. He actually works with CGI Motorsports. We went to Gingerman Speedway in Wisconsin, and we had a track day. And this is where I fell in love. I'd never been on the track. Dennis actually took me out the day before on the track in his Honda Fit, and holy crap, I got in the car and I was like, okay, Honda Fit, yay, let's see what this thing does. But he drove the shit out of that thing, and it was so fun. I couldn't believe, you know, how far you can actually take it. So we took my GTI out the next day, and he was training me the lines and how to drive, acceleration and everything. And it was, I see why people love driving cars so much, because on the track it was such a cool experience, and I can't wait to go back. The bug definitely hit me. I loved it. It was a great experience all the way around.
My arms are getting tired. Oh, it's awesome.
After driving down the track, I wanted to continue to modify this thing. I wanted it to go as far as I could on it and learn as much as I could. So the next step was to get new wheels. I went to Fitment Industries. I got the Rotiform RSC 18-inch wheels, and then I got the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. And I did a whole video as I didn't know anything about offset and the sizes and everything that goes along with it. And I just dived in there and learned as much as I could about wheels, and it was pretty interesting learning all the differences there. I really did have a blast with this car. I drove the crap out of this car. I drove it every single day to and from work. I put a lot of miles on it. I enjoyed it. I drove it like a car enthusiast drives a car, and at this point I had 60,000 miles on it, and I wanted to do a video to do a full tune-up on the car. I wanted to make sure that this car stayed in pristine condition, both the outside and the internal parts, the engine. So I was planning on doing a full tune-up. I ordered all the parts from ESC Tuning. I was gonna change all the fluids, the brake fluid, the coolant, the oil change, and there was transmission fluid. I wanted to change it all and learn how to do it myself and actually show you guys how to do it on your own vehicles. I got spark plugs, I got the cabin air filter, I had right down to the window wipers. I was gonna go full maintenance on it, and I got about halfway through it. I actually took out the spark plugs, and we noticed that there was some oil in the fourth cylinder, which is not normal, but I talked to a couple people and they said it's just a little bit, it's not bad. And actually this is kind of where I started noticing problems with it. When I was driving it, this is what happened. Anytime I accelerated fast, if I pushed the pedal down 3/4 or full, it almost feel like it would skip. I didn't know if it was a transmission problem or if it was a clutch problem. It felt like both of those, and really weird. There's a lot of highway driving when I drove home, so I drove on the highway, I'd get off the exit, and when I'd take a right on the road, I could feel it just slip a little bit too, just when I took a right. And I don't know why it was doing that. I talked to quite a few people. I had Jimmy drive it, who's has some mechanic experience. He drove it around. He couldn't feel any difference to it. There was no lights on it, and at that point, I didn't know exactly what to do. There wasn't really anything wrong with it. Maybe it was all in my head. So I kept on driving it for a couple weeks, and that's when a light came on. This is when the problem starts. So that was all the good stuff about it. We're getting into the bad and the ugly part of it. It had some problems. So the light came on. It was a low pressure light. I was leaving work. I was probably a half a mile down the road, and this low oil pressure light came on. It was blinking. I said, pull over immediately and shut the car off. I did. I pulled over immediately. I opened the hood. I looked at everything. It didn't sound any different. It was still running. I took it back to the shop. I drove it half a mile back to the shop. We parked it. I had Jimmy bring a reader so he could read the codes to find out exactly what went wrong with it. And of course, it lost oil pressure. We knew that. The light's on. So I brought it to Automotivation. Brandon, who was the tech there, was super knowledgeable. Really cool guy. We're friends now. Really enjoyed talking to him. Brought it to him. He kind of gave his opinion, what it could be without even looking at it yet. He said it may be an oil pressure sensor. He wanted to start at the beginning and diagnose it, and hopefully it wasn't something drastic. He checked all the valves or all the oil pressure sensors. Nothing was wrong there. He went through a couple little diagnosis, and then the last thing was actually to do an oil change. Let's check the oil, and that's what they did. And what they found in the oil was some metal flakes. So we knew we had some sort of issue. He was still optimistic. He's like, it could be a number of things. It doesn't mean you have a completely blown engine. So we were still optimistic at the time, but it was beyond what they could do at that shop. He recommended going to a VW specialist. So that's what I did. I started asking around. I asked a lot of people on Instagram and Facebook for their suggestions, and I finally found a guy named Zach at VFC Engineering. So we brought the car to VFC Engineering, and they diagnosed it. They were optimistic too. Well, let's get into it. It may not be as bad as you think it is. When you find metal flakes in the engine, though, you're just kind of like, that's really, really, really bad. They ended up taking the oil pan down, and this is where we found the thrust bearing in the bottom of the oil pan. At this point, we know it's bad. We didn't know exactly how bad it was. They had to get in the engine and figure that out. So we did a video with Zach from VFC Engineering, super knowledgeable guy. Again, this guy knows his stuff. They had a lot of really cool cars in the shop, and that's what they do. They just rebuild engines, so I felt very comfortable having my car there and talking to him. So he took the oil pan down. Obviously, there was a lot of metal flakes in there, the thrust bearing in the bottom of the oil pan. So what my engine actually suffered from was crank walk, and I couldn't get a straight answer of why this exactly happened. Obviously, we put more power to the car. We put in a beefier clutch, and there is always a weak point to the engine. And in the Volkswagen GTIs, the manual version, this is the weak point, and it's not uncommon for this to happen. It's after it happened and I put my story out there, a lot of people reached out to me and said they had the same issues. JR, who has another Volkswagen channel, I talked to him for a while. He had the same thing happen to his Volkswagen, and he had to rebuild the motor. So it sucks. I've never heard of it before. I wish I would have known that. If I would have known that that would have been an issue, obviously modding the car, putting more power to it, you're gonna have more issues, right? I didn't think about that much. I didn't know that crank walk was a thing before I even started doing this. Would I have done things differently? Probably not. I think this is a lesson I kind of had to learn the hard way. So Zach gave me some options, and this is where I had to make a decision on what to do. The engine was shot, it was done. It had to be replaced. So he gave me two options. The one option was to rebuild the engine with bigger, beefier parts, almost build a race engine for it. And the second option was just to put a stock OEM engine back into it. So the pros and cons of this: putting a beefier engine and replacing all the parts. Well, now I don't have that weak point anymore. We would have replaced that thrust bearing. We would have put forged parts in there and made it a lot beefier. We would have had 0 miles rebuilding it, and I could have kept on driving the car, kept on doing mods and everything to it. That total estimate was $13,500 for the beefier engine. Let's rebuild it. Let's make a race engine on it. Let's continue to have fun with it. Or I could put this OEM stock used engine in it. There's always variables when it comes to new engines. Where did it come from? How many miles does it have on it? And you don't really know. And it's stock, so I'm gonna have the stock bearing in there still, and this could happen again. The price for that was right around $7,000. I think it was $4,300 for a new engine, and then $2,600 somewhere in there for labor to put it in, take it out, and put the engine in. So I had this decision. And I did a lot of numbers, you know, so I went back and forth. Do I put the OEM engine in it and then just sell it? Because that was my plan. Like, if I'm putting the OEM engine in it and this could happen again, I don't want it to happen again. I'm gonna get rid of it, I'm gonna sell it, I'm gonna start with something new. Or do I keep it? Do I keep it, keep on modding it, make it my track car, maybe get a daily car that I can drive every day, keep on modding it? And I was going back and forth, and I was doing numbers. And ultimately, if I kept it for 5 years, I think the best option would have been to build that engine. Let's build this race engine, let's build it beefier so this doesn't happen again. I can continue to mod the car, I can continue to drive the car, I can continue to take it on the track if I wanted to. And that was my mindset at the time. So I said, yes, let's build this engine. I mean, I was in it, like, I love the car. I want to see how far I can go with it. I want to continue modding it. I had lots of plans for it. I wanted to wide body the car. I wanted to get a new wing on it. I wanted to do more performance. I wanted to get a better cooling system. I wanted to do better brakes. There was all kinds of plans I had for this car. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Let's invest the money. It's a lot of money, but I'm into it. I want to see how far I can go with this car. So I said yes. Let's go with the performance build. So I decided to go for the performance build. I know it was a lot of money, but I know that Zach and his team were the right guys to do this. Just like with Chicago Auto Pros, I know that we're not the cheapest shop in town. You know, we are quality driven, and the same thing with VFC Engineering. It was a lot of money, but I wanted it done right, and I know that they would do it right. It wasn't about the money, it was about having the car done right. I don't want to go through this again. So I was okay with it. I'm perfectly fine with it. After a couple months, Zach got back to me. We're going back and forth. He actually took apart the engine, and what happens is that thrust bearing, when you push the clutch in, it presses against this thrust bearing, which pushes the crank in, and that's what went wrong. So this crank had play in it. It went back and forth, and it actually started to wear the block out. And when they took everything apart and looked at the block, they were not able to rebuild this block. And they needed to find a new block for it. After several months, they could not find a block. Zach came to me after everything, and in his words, he exhausted all his options to find a new block to put this in. So we had a couple options now. We buy a used engine, we take everything out of it, and use that block to rebuild the car. And a new block was about $4,300. So that would add $4,300 to this already $13,000 estimate. So I'm looking at $17,000 to $18,000 to rebuild this engine on my GTI. That's probably only worth $15,000. And it was at this point where I had to make a decision. You know, I had to make a decision. Do I put more money into it? I was okay with $13,500, somewhere in there. Am I all right with $18,000? And I talked to my wife, we went over it, I slept on it, and that's where I kind of made the decision. Maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't be building this performance engine. Maybe I should just move on. So I called Zach the next day, and I told him, I actually emailed him, you know, this is a sign that maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and let's go with option B, which was the used engine, and with the stock, everything, let's put it in there, which was about $7,000, okay? Let's go back to that, and I'm gonna sell it. So that's where my thought process was there. Zach says, okay, we'll find a new engine for it. They actually found a new engine that had 30,000 miles on it. They got the engine. I was really happy when they got it. Zach called me. And this is where it kind of breaks down, and I don't know, I thought about doing this video, and I don't know if this is right or not. I don't want to put anybody down, and I don't want to put anybody in a bad light, but there was some miscommunication from this point forward. We got the OEM engine. Zach said he was gonna do something special for me, and actually I thought, you know, like, that's awesome. Okay, he's gonna do a little extra. We're doing videos together. He already told me, you know, he already got some phone calls from the videos and everything, and he wanted to do some YouTube stuff too, and I was gonna help him out and help him get started with that and everything. So when he said he was gonna do some extra stuff with it, I was like, sweet, he's gonna do some extra stuff for it. I'm like, that's awesome. And he called me and told me, he's like, I'm gonna do some extra stuff, and I'm gonna feel pretty, he said, I feel pretty confident that you may fall in love with this thing again and actually wanna drive it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, at this point, I already ordered another car, and I told him, like, I already have another car, so my plans are just to sell it. We actually went into VFC Engineering to do kind of a final video just before they put the engine in it and take a look at it. So I went down to VFC Engineering. I talked with Zach. He showed me the engine that was going in the car. It was all nice and cleaned up. They took some stuff out. They actually, you know, tightened the timing chain. It had 30,000 miles on it, so, you know, it didn't need that much, but they went in there. I asked him if he redid the throttle bearing. He said no, they didn't put a new throttle bearing in.
Just
Did you do anything else to the thrust washer?
No, not on this one.
And so it was the same throttle bearing, but they did some other stuff to it. And he said he felt pretty confident that I could drive it for many, many miles and not have any issues. It did come with a 36,000 mile warranty, that was great. So we did all that. He showed me the pictures, very thorough. Their shop is awesome, and put the engine in. He called me back a week later when everything was done. I went to go pick up the car. Super excited to pick it up and drive it and get it back and drive it for a little bit before I actually sell it. I was excited about that, and we were talking back and forth. He's like, you're probably gonna fall in love with it again. I'm like, yeah, I may fall in love with it, but like, I already had a car on order, so I mean, it's gone. And I picked it up and I got the bill. The bill was $12,643.99, and I was shocked. I mean, I was expecting a $7,000 bill, maybe an $8,000 bill, you know? You never know when you're doing this mechanic stuff, it can go up and down a little bit. But from when we originally talked, and I'm gonna put the blame on me, because I was assuming the stuff that he was doing extra was on their part, and I didn't ask. I should have, after we decided to go back to the OEM used engine build, maybe I should have asked more questions. Maybe I should have asked more, what is this price gonna be? What's the difference in there? Because I was just assuming that we had plan A, performance build, or we have plan B, we put in an OEM engine. And I understand that they put a lot of work into it. And that was another thing too, like, they did a fantastic job. Like, how can I be mad at that? They did a great job. The car was running great. It was back to normal. They did some extra stuff to it and felt confident in it. And it was a bigger build than I expected, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Did I pay too much? Was I expecting too much or whatnot? But I don't know. It just didn't sit right at the time. It still doesn't sit right. But the car's gone. It doesn't matter. I sold the car. I don't have it anymore. So overall, my final thoughts on the car, the driving experience was 10 out of 10. I had so much fun with this thing. Even after I got it back with all the problems and issues, I loved driving this thing. Would I ever get another one? I would probably get it. If I got something, I would probably upgrade to the Golf R. I would probably go with the DSG. So this crank walk issue that I had, you're not going to have an issue with the DSG model because you don't have the manual, you don't have the clutch that's going into that thrust bearing there. So it's a non-existent issue with those types of cars. So if I did get another Volkswagen, I would get the R, and I would get a DSG for sure. My thinking with selling the car, honestly, like, I'm disappointed in it, you know? Like, I knew this could happen, and it's a risk you take when you're modding cars. But I I think I was just like, you know, you fall in love with something, and then I just kind of I fell out of love with it, and I wanted something new. You know, it is like love. You can't marry the first girl you fall in love with, right? You know, you got to play the field a little bit. So that's what I'm thinking here. Like, I want to try some other cars. So what I did is actually I went to the sensible route. I bought something, a daily driver that I can feel confident in, that I can drive back and forth from work every day and not worry about it. So that's what I got with the Tesla. I got a Tesla, and there's a lot of reasons I got a Tesla, and we'll share that in the next video when I pick up the Tesla. But my thought process was behind it. Now I got this daily driver, now I can do a real project car. I can get a project car. I've always wanted to do like a ground up restoration on an old muscle car. I don't know anything about that yet, but I want to learn as much as I can. But I'm going to start small. I'm actually going to start small with a smaller project car and work my way up to doing that full restoration. Obviously, there's a lot of tools and everything that you need with that, and I don't have the budget for that yet, but I want to work my way up to it, so I'm super excited. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for coming along with me and with my experience with my GTI. I had fun with it. I really enjoyed the car. I hope I didn't discourage too many people from buying a Volkswagen GTI, because it really was a fun car. I enjoyed my time with it. I would definitely get a DSG if I got another one. And I know it's kind of a hit or miss with getting that the manual version. If you got the manual version, which is fantastic to drive, I would probably think twice. I myself wouldn't mod it again, just with the experience that I had. It was rough to go with. It was a lot of up and downs, but overall, I love the car. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for sharing the story with me. Thanks for being along with it and coming along with me. Make sure you subscribe, because we got a lot of other videos. We got some project cars coming up. I got my new Tesla that we're doing a whole project on. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video, and we'll see you next time.